Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Yet another opportunity for us to delve into everything that we thought we knew and find new ways of interacting and coexisting with everybody, different or not. So I welcome you all to our Monday Matters session on a Sunday evening when the jitters of Sunday make you say, whew, Monday's around the corner. So I'll give you a minute for everybody to join, but I'm very excited of our guest today. She's going to share with us she's got a wealth of knowledge when it comes to content, communication, TV hosting, and so forth. So today you are in for a treat. We're still in November, and remember, November's theme or November's events are National Disability Awareness Month, where we try and integrate and find ourselves in this big giant world that we're in. So basically, as Monday Matters community, we want to gear you up in terms of understanding the differences of people with disabilities, as well as the differences of everybody else that we exist with. Because in all honesty, in companies speak about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So as I've just added Lou to the call as we wait for her to join, as excited as I am. Woo! Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly well.
Great.
Am I also audible on my side? You look amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You do too, love.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I'm so happy. I'm so happy we're having this. And in all honesty, it's just delving into what the norms are, what we think we know, and everything else. But and I think I just shared now before you joined that being National Disability Awareness Month, and yet again another something that people just want to celebrate at that particular time. And I don't want that. I don't want us to be in a space where we only have November to be aware that we are all alike and so forth. And in all honesty, the more I don't know if there's a word, like the more we force each other on each other, we will
Right?
we'll be
Right?
able to exist.
Definitely.
This thing
Definitely.
of
I
being
totally agree
modest.
with you.
So I
I,
want to get you to introduce yourself
so,
first, to
um,
introduce yourself. Who would you like to be known as? Who is Luthando Kekana? And so forth for our community so that everybody knows. And then, we'll go through the
okay,
swing of things.
good. Well, thank you, and hello, everybody. My name is Luthando Kekana, and I think I like to call myself an activist for persons living with disabilities, women, children, and everyone. Yeah, basically, I actually want and I strive to stand up for those that otherwise are not in a position to talk for themselves. Yeah, other than being known as the lady with the pink hair or the colorful hair all the time, I'm a mother, I'm a communication specialist, I'm a communicator because wherever I go, actually, I talk. I'm a chairperson of the board for the APD, which is the Association for Persons Living with Disabilities, Greater Johannesburg. And basically, what we do there is we try to get persons with disabilities and the families rehabilitated into society when they are hit with life-changing situations. For instance, if somebody gets in a car accident and now they get to have a condition that they need to live with for the rest of their lives, we actually then help them to get back into society, get them back to school if they're still kids. If they were employed, then we try to see what's the best way to get them back into the market. So yes, that's what we do. And also I sit on the board of the South African Disability Development Trust. It's a lot. And what we do there, actually, we get assistive devices for persons with disabilities that are trying to get into the workspace or those that are in the workspace but are not covered by reasonable accommodation. And yeah, and I am a fellow with YALI, which is Young African Leadership Initiative, a partnership between Africa and the United States, which is actually in partnership with the Barack Obama Foundation. And what else? What else? What else? What else? I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. But basically, yes, I am an activist and I do anything and anything that's going to help the agenda of making people's lives better.
I like that. You know what I like that you shared. You know, we often think, oh, because we were born different, right? We often
Yeah.
think we'll never find ourselves in that predicament or in that situation where your life has changed overnight.
Yeah.
And I think you and I both were in the same room when we had the lady that took us by storm, and she explained how she ended up on a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that we often make an assumption. You're in a wheelchair, you are probably born, disabled or something. But we don't get into a space where we understand that there could be an accident, and a life changing accident where a person cannot walk anymore. And I'm glad that you're saying you are rehabilitating those people, because it's not an overnight thing, right? You're not going to wake up and then all of a sudden you are motivated, especially if you're a person that could do things on your own. I can imagine the frustration. Do you want to share a bit of that? Say, how's the reception? Because sometimes we think I was born like this, and chances are I'm going to be mobile and be able to do things the way that I could. But things change. So the foundation that you're busy with and the teams that you've worked with, do you want to share a bit for us to say, from the word go, the realization that your feet are no longer as mobile as you were, or you woke up and the nurses told you? I don't know if you've experienced something, or people that came with those kind of conditions to your organization.
Look, I think how I like to look at life or challenges basically is most of the time, yes, the environment can be very disabling. When we look at you know, services that actually should be accessible to all, hospitals, police station, the post office, schools, and all of those. But they're not. But those are physical things which can be changed just like this, right? The biggest problem that I think that we have is up here and yeah, in the heart. If we're to look at human beings from a human element, remember that disability rights are human rights and we are all human. And as a human being, we meet at a core where we all have one similar need, and the need of acceptance, the need to be needed. All of us, I don't care what race, how you were brought up, whatever, we all want to be accepted and to be needed. So that is why we actually want to rehabilitate people to get back into society as soon as possible, so that they do not lose that touch. So, and also for their family, they do not lose that connection with the person and the community. And when I mean community, I mean your workspace, your friends, your family, whatever community that is. So, and yes, I was not born with a disability myself, and I understand that very much because I did face depression, I did face exclusion, and all of those, and it was with the support of family, friends, and other people that actually God brought into my life, and faith actually, that it allowed me to be in a space where I had to fight. You know, I like this movie, The Color Purple. This place where this part where all my life I had to fight before I let happen with me. But anyway, that resonates with me because not that I had to fight all my life, but most of my life I had to fight. I had to fight for what? I had to fight for my place at work. I had to fight. I had to fight for my place in the community. I had to fight for my place in my mind. I had to fight myself in my heart and my beliefs. I had to change them because, and I'm going to be honest here, before I became a person with a disability, sure, I had so many stereotypes, and because that's the education that I was given, right? and that society that I lived in, that, once you have a disability, your life is over, your life is limited, and all of those things. And I was, and still am, a go-getter and a person who doesn't believe in boundaries, especially negative boundaries. So I left pushing the glass ceiling. And when I was faced with that, you can imagine, I thought the ceiling just came down, like much, much lower. And I had to push it higher. I had to challenge myself. And one of the greatest struggles that I had was finding representation. Um, so, oh, says girl, you have to stop me. I can talk forever. So,
No,
yeah.
I love that. I love that. I mean,
So,
you
yeah.
are
But
schooling me here. You are schooling me, and I'm here. And I think the community and all of us are here for that, because
great.
that's the beauty of it. And you touched on something that is very that just ticked everything in me. You said you were not born disabled, right? And that's
Yeah.
exactly the part that where everybody starts now going back and saying, so there is a possibility. There are people, those movies that you've seen, a person waking up and their legs are no longer working and stuff like that. You realize from there that this could be me. I mean, this can happen
Yeah.
to absolutely everyone. And I love that you are owning that. But I
Yes.
want you
Yeah.
to share with us, some of those childhood memories. And now that you've mentioned, I don't have more details around what really happened. If you're comfortable, I'd appreciate if you can share with us in terms of what transpired. How did you become disabled? Maybe for the guys
Oh,
that
yeah.
don't know and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. No problem. I don't mind sharing my story at all. Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's a typical South African story, to tell the truth. There's just not much juice to it. But in any case, well, Saturday morning, wake up, I was visiting a friend and went to buy bread, and there were some gangsters that were um loitering around, and I think they were gangsters. And I just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they started shooting one another. And I did not run, and I was caught by a stray bullet. So, and the funny thing is, as much as I said there's not much to the story, it is something that could happen to anyone at any time, considering that, it could be a car accident, it could be violence on the street, it could be violence at home, it could be violence anywhere. So for me, I think it's a story that, yes, as sad as it is, but it is not foreign to a lot of South Africans. So yeah, basically that's what happened, and I found myself in hospital, and um, for a while, um, yes, and I was told that I will never be able to walk again. And yo, I mean, it did get to me. Where to from here? Do I start my life all over
Yes,
again? Is it
yes,
better? Am I better off dead? And maybe get into the afterlife and reboot, reborn again? Do I what do I do? Or do I die a physical, a spiritual death
yes,
and rise again? A new person? um, you get to face yourself and ask yourself these questions. And, it's only when you're in the deepest and the darkest where you get your true answers. Who are you in all of this? Because, most of the time we're just surrounded by vanity and things that really don't matter. And we forget to ask ourselves those questions, even when you say that, "Hey, I'm asking myself the questions and I'm being hard with myself." But some journeys, and we all have different journeys in life. I mean, you could be a drug addict, you could lose a loved one that you never thought you would when he's a kid, losing a mother. It's very dark. It's very challenging, where you now are faced with the real question: who am I without the noise, without all of this?
yes,
Who is
yes,
the core of me? And I was faced with that, and to find I had to find myself. I had to refine myself and reinvent myself. So I think in many ways I I did die, and then coming back to life was a very different person than the one that, yeah, I was.
You know, I'm intrigued, but at the same time, I don't know, but it makes one question, you know, themselves to say, why am I here? Because in all honesty, you probably had to delve into that more than ever in your life to say, okay, number one, there's a reason why I survived,
Mm-hmm.
right? In as much as you mentioned that there's a trickle of things that go into your head that was I better off dead.
Yeah.
But there has to be, I've said this word, I think, at church a million times to say, sometimes you mourn, you have to mourn what was so that you can
Yes.
give life to what is, you know, because sometimes that lingers on. You start living two lives, a life
Mm-hmm.
before the shooting and a life after. And I want to
Yeah.
commend you that you never lost the spark or you gained a new spark. But
Yeah.
with that, you know, on your own, because you're saying on your own, you managed with the support and everything and everybody that was around you that kind of geared you up and faith. Now,
Mm.
do you think, or did you ever find yourself that you were undervalued now? Was there a change? And more so because there was society, then you had to deal with the society part. So share more of, did you ever feel undervalued? Did you come back and feel as though, you know what, I'm no longer where people treating you differently?
Um, Actually, yeah, that's the truth. People, they were treating me differently. Um, I think, you know, at different stages of life, they were treating me differently and differently for different reasons. I remember when I was going through the depression and all of that. Um, the 7 stages of grief, I suppose. People were treating me with sympathy, and like yo Nkosi yami, why, and all of that, and that was not helping me in any case. But I found that as I got out of that, now people were treating me differently. What are we to do with you? Because now I was over the depression. You're never really over the depression, really. It's like alcoholism or an addiction, but you work with it. So, in any case, as I was now dealing with the depression, being over it, being aware of it, and being able to handle it, now you are this person who is now ready to face life, but people around you or the community, life in general, is like, what are we to do with you now? You're a big question mark. And remember that because we don't have a lot of representation of persons living with disabilities in SA or in Africa in general, actually, we don't have representation. And I always talk about representation. It's very important, very, very important. I didn't have someone who looked like what I want to look like, that I could mirror, that I could say, if she made it, so can I. What are the footsteps? How can she mentor me, whether she was close to me or far away? Is there a book that I could read? Where am I going to get, you know, the the
Sure.
something, and I struggled with that. So what I did was, yes, I did read books that were similar to the journey that I wanted to take. At the time, back in the day, I was a big fan of Oprah. And back in the day, she had a lot of motivational people coming to her shows and stuff like that. And I had to find a thread on, of all people, you know, that made it in life. All of them, they had some sort of a setback in life,
Yes.
There is some sort of a story that they had to overcome. And some of them, they also did not have anyone who looked like them or who sounded like them or who could validate them. So they had to validate themselves. And that's where I started. I started with self-validation. I started by believing my madness, that I can be out of here, the situation that I'm at now. I can dream, I can dream the unthinkable dream. I
Mm.
can be that girl on a disability, with a disability, who wants to stay alone and go to varsity and face it by themselves and deal with it by themselves. And and had to validate that. And that's where I started. I had to find the representation within myself, which was very sad, to tell the truth, and lonely.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. I was going to touch on the lonely part, because as it is, right? As it is, starting something or believing yourself is a lonely journey. Like you become your hype man, and as lonely as it is, I like what you said, you started having to believe your own madness. I sometimes sit like that, and in my head I'm this big person and this big person, and then you come back and you realize that, okay, and my sisters are also online. I'm sure my sisters are like, yo, the dreamer. But it's one of those things, right? And I can imagine
Yeah.
when you are the dreamer, when you feel as though the dream has been dimmed, and everybody else is just going on with their lives. From your view, and I'm not, you can share if corporate was always your world, because when we looked at your bio as well, you never mentioned that I had toxicity in the corporate, or I've been in the corporate this and that and that. So in your view, do you believe that everybody has equal access, you know, equal access to all the services? Because on paper, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the live that we did last week. On paper, it looks as though, yes, we are equal, and and those fancy names. From your view, as a person that literally says, here I am, I've got a disability, do you think there are equal opportunities for everybody that is currently available?
Not at all. See, I hold a very, very, very controversial standpoint. And that is, I hate leaderships for persons with disabilities version. Like, because for me, the way that our country is set up, we're like perpetuating poverty, and also less expectations from persons with disabilities, So for me, I think entry into corporate, that is the entry into corporate. Persons with disabilities, give them a learnership, and then let them work for 12 months. What are they learning, God? And then after 12 months, they go, and then you get a new batch in. You don't treat people like that. They're not cattle. They're not stock. You don't get people in and people out, people in and people out. There's no sustainability. At the same time, we're dealing with symptoms, and that is also another thing that we do as a country. We like dealing with symptoms as opposed to dealing with the core problem. The core problem that we have as a country is that access to education. If we're to have all people have access to education, then we can talk about things like access into the corporate world, access into any other thing. But at the right now, we have a problem that a lot of persons with disabilities do not have access to education. So what kind of job are they going to get? What kind of jobs are they going to get? I was lucky. And I always check my privilege. That is the honest truth. I was privileged. I was lucky that I was able to go to school, and I was much older when I acquired my disability, right? So I was lucky that I had access to good schools. I was lucky that I had access to a family that had a couple of rands to spend on me, so that I could be able to get a proper wheelchair, so that I'd be able to get a proper place to stay even when I was at varsity. So I did not rely on the state, right? So money is a big thing when it comes to education for a person with disabilities, because it's not only going access to the good schools, it's access to assistive devices to get to those schools. And then we have to have budget for food, have budget for everything that everybody else needs. And transportation, access to transportation, it's not easy. So for me, when it comes to access to jobs, that is my face.
And that scares me, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine, like, as it is right now, let's be realistic and be honest, because
Yeah.
that's why we are here, right? It is quite disappointing, because what you also mentioned that's very critical is that you acquired your disability later, right?
Mhm.
It means in here
Yeah.
you are fine. And you remember the sentiments that I shared. I said my
Mm.
concern is the separation or the part where this has to be mentally we are all in the same phase, if not better. You know, that's
Yeah.
my stance. And I remember I was sharing that when we met. Because in all honesty, now you get into a situation where somebody else deems you unintelligent, uneducated, for you to now get an intern position or a contract work. And
Yes.
you mentioned the part of sustainability. It's something that is still intriguing. But we did say that we take it one day at a time, right?
Yeah.
And we are at the right time where these conversations are going to be held. Whoever feels that they are the ones that are blocking these things, we are now saying, let us open our minds up, because who excluded who? We shouldn't even be trying to be inclusive. Because honestly, if we are all matching game set match, the only things that need to be adjusted, you said they are here. They are
Mm-hmm.
small stuff. But the part where you are very much able and you can do the job is what gives me sleepless nights, because you are very
Mm.
capable of doing everything that you dream of. The education part, again, is something that me and you touched on,
Yes.
which is tricky. And I've now gone to realize that the schools are more expensive than the general schools that are free, the public schools that are free. They are not as accessible for everybody. There's a guy, Jabuzwane, I
Mm-hmm.
think he shared on LinkedIn about his daughter's condition as well, and says, let alone looking for a school, going to a waiting list.
Yeah.
And then when you find the school, the fees and the amounts are not for your average South African. And it's a very tricky part where you get a man that has, that standing, that social standing, to come to socials and say, it's just unfortunate that
Yes.
over and above everything, we wait here, you're on the waiting list, but the fees are not conducive. So out of 3, 4 children, you have one with a certain condition. Now you
Mm-hmm.
can't get them to school. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the most disappointing part of our education system. And I'm still saying, you know why? Because the evaluation of the disability is flawed.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they go in and they blanket everybody, in a sense, to say everybody must go to this particular special needs school, it doesn't have to always be like that. Free up space for people that need those schools. I think, in my view, to say the ones that can use certain facilities, get the school to have the facility. The cosmetic changes, you can change the cosmetic, because the education system is the same. It's only when you know that these ones unfortunately have to have special teachers with a certain skill, but free up and open up the teaching system. Because now they're closing the teachers, right? They're saying they're closing vacancies for
Mm-hmm.
teachers from 2025.
Yeah.
But there is a leak on the right. There is a
Mm-hmm.
leak on the right. You are saying we don't need more. How about going and say we don't need more in the normal conventional schools? We actually need more for these particular schools with special needs. So immediately when you do your curriculum in the special needs section. You know,
You know what, Caesar, also, the word special, I actually don't, I think we should do away with it. Because really, the minute we coin something that is special, that means it's not normal. That means something needs to be, we make it extraordinary. And then that separates people, because, the minute they say something is special, that you start panicking. How do I measure up, or how do I bring it? Yeah, there is that disconnect. And I think when it comes to, that's what I say, we must just think like human beings, that everyone is just a human being. For example, if all schools were just to be made universally accessible on a physical cosmetic, um, and just take off the cosmetics, make bathrooms accessible, put ramps where you need to put ramps, do away with unnecessary stuff, stairs, and all of those things. And let everyone who can come to that school come to that school. Now, remember that, especially when it comes to education, um, everybody's got whatever level that they need to
yes.
And sometimes just because you look like you do not have a disability, but you have an invisible disability, which could be, um, yeah, it's another topic for another day, invisible disabilities. But, and then those kids, remember, they used to be taken to so-called special schools
Yes.
because you were failing to catch up in the mainstream class. So for me is, if we were to look at human beings at the level that they are, not what they look like or what we perceive them to
Measure.
be,
Yes.
right? And then we have schools that cater to people according to their educational level needs. But those schools, the cosmetics, all of the schools, the cosmetics are taken care of. All the schools that got, it's proper, they've got friends. All the schools have got accessible bathrooms. All the schools, all the teachers are trained on sensitive, they're given sensitivity training and all of those things. Re-educate our teachers, and also as a country. You know what? There is nothing wrong with saying that I don't know.
Thank you.
There's something wrong with saying that I educate me, like I don't know what to do. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, that's when you learn, because you're being sincere and people pick up on
Yes.
sincerity.
Yes.
But when you're going to come across, and which is what happens a lot in corporate. And I was talking to a friend yesterday saying, a lot of persons with disabilities don't stay in corporate.
No.
And I think the reason that they don't stay, one of the major reasons, is because of the connectivity, the us and them. There is this silent stigmatization that's happening. It's silent discrimination, and it's very lethal when you don't have thick skin to fight it. And those are the reasons where people actually, it's like, I like putting it into simple terms. When black people apartheid 1994, we came. Do you remember when we went to Sentinel, most of us that were a bit, grown a little bit at that time. When we started working, do you remember that there was a group this side and a
Yes.
group this side?
Yes.
There was white people this side and we had black people this side, and we were all working in the same company. And there was subtle things that black people were complaining about, but they could not pinpoint. Hence, no one could take anywhere. You can't take anyone to the CCMA because of the way that they looked at you. You can't take anywhere to the CCMA because they did not include you in a staff price. You can't take anywhere to the CCMA because, but those are the things that make people feel included, right? So you get there, you're the only black girl, and then you're like, and no one is saying hi to you. They're talking to you. The only time they talk to you is about work. Other than that, they don't see you, they don't recognize you, they jump over you. They have to deal with you because you are there, but if they didn't have to, they would not have to. It is the same thing with disability. When a person with disability joins the company, a lot of people will feel like, you know, what and then when they deal with you on a incidents to work all the time, and nothing else. They don't invite you to stuff pride. They don't invite you to this. If you make a party and you invite them, nobody comes. So what happens there? There's no inclusion. You're not part of the clique. And so if you happen to be in the minority, you're the only one, what's the best things to do? Next thing to do? I mean, you leave. You spend most of your time at work, and if you're not going to feel like you're part of the family, you're going to quit. You're going to leave because, I mean, work-life balance is very important. So those are the things that we tend to overlook. And usually I like using the post-apartheid example is because a lot of people can associate and relate to it, because a lot of us black people, we've been in that situation.
Yes.
And other people who have not been in this situation, who have not been in that situation, but they have been in a situation where you have been excluded, could even be in a family.
Yes. You know, you've just made that exclusion or that example that it's close to home. It's close to home because you
Yeah.
feel it. You feel it. And
Mm.
I was trying to shy away from that to say what happens when you enter the room, because I don't know if it's ignorance or it's just us being unhuman. you know, honestly speaking, because there are certain things I think both sides that we also get to those spaces where it's almost like we I don't know, personally might not know how to relate, and also you're on your part you might not know, like I don't know how you want me to have a conversation with you when you know. So it's a very tricky part, and it just takes people that are just human. I think beyond everything, you mentioned something critical. When you don't know, ask.
Yes.
And I want to say this, and I want to reiterate more so on that part. I've seen, and I think I've heard.
Mm,
In corporate, I was the chairperson of the DEI, right? And
mm,
B. And you'll get certain things like, you touched my wheelchair and you pushed me. And somebody says, but you look, you know, those 10 styles, because corporate has those doors, right?
mm,
And somebody comes
mm,
and they want to help. And the person says, do you think I got here not knowing how to get in, or
mm,
not knowing what are the cues? I don't know if you've experienced where somebody just jumps at you and they automatically want to push or they want to help, because that's where my biggest disconnect is, to say, okay, so what did you do? The one party, you know, there's always parties when it comes to when you're a chairperson, you kind of listen to different stories, and the one just says, I simply did not know what to do, and
yeah.
this one said, no, you assumed. So how many assumptions did you have to go through in your life to get to a point of, okay, guys, be right? I don't know if there's a thing
Lot,
like that.
lot. I mean, from I had lots. I mean, from a when you get sometimes you get people assuming that um even in the workspace you are there because you are a quota, not because you are qualified to be there and you have to prove your
Yes.
worth. No, guys, guys, we all went to school here, and others is people assuming, people getting shocked. I don't think they still get shocked now because a lot of people with disabilities now drive. But back in the day, people get shocked that you have a car, you're driving yourself. And when people get to realize that you stay alone, like, how do you do that? Do you have people are assuming that you have to have a helper.
Yes.
And they get shocked that no, actually, I don't want a helper. I don't need a helper. I can do everything by myself. And people getting shocked that you are in a relationship. People getting shocked that you have children. I remember when I was pregnant, yo, the looks that I got, you could read the question off of their faces. And and people getting, I mean, when you're pregnant and people, that means Uti, you value your child. That, okay, fine, the stamp of that means yes, it's true. The rumors are true. Now, the rumors are true, that means she's having sex. You know what, you see what I mean? So those are the things that are happening, and people then assuming, Njani, Njani. So, but at the same time, for me, is the anxiety is normal, right?
Wow.
It's normal to be surprised when you are one in 10, when you don't have something that
Yeah.
everybody else has. Like if you were to go, if an alien was to land, someone with blue skin was to land, we will all be surprised, and it's okay.
100.
It's okay. For me, it's okay. But what is not okay is to pretend that it's normal. That is weird. That's what makes things uncomfortable. Ask. So you are in a relationship, yes. Are you pregnant? Yeah, I'm pregnant. Oh my God, congratulations. How are you, Jola? Tell me where in your relationship. And we have a go time, we gossip and we talk.
Yeah.
That will take away the weirdness.
Awkwardness.
The weird part is
Mm.
when people then just goes like, ah, Lorna, kanjani? And then they give you the eye, and then now you get to be in your own space, So yeah, so those are just some of the little things. Yeah, yeah, and then people wanting to open doors for you all the time, people assuming that you can't push yourself and you're in a mall, just want to come up behind you and start pushing you, which is very uncomfortable. For me, it's like, imagine you are having you're walking with your kids, or you're just having a stroll by yourself, and then someone comes and grabs your hands and start pushing or like dragging you. It's the same feeling.
Wow. You
It's
know,
like
I
the
like
same
your
feeling.
sincerity. I like the way you put it, you know, and I like the fact that it's in as much as you see the looks say it all, right? The looks kind of crack this whole eggshell open, and I love that you see the humor in it to say, oh wow, guys, like really.
Yeah.
And I love that you keep on centering everything to the creator, you know,
Yes.
the beauty of God. And in as much as we manipulate some of the words or the scriptures that says he will not give you mthwalo, you know, or
Mhm.
nothing that you can't handle. But more than anything, he says, when you go through everything, I am right here. You know, when you
Mm.
go through the stairs, I created you. I set this whole motion. I know I formed you. And I'm able to be there with you. And I love that you keep on grounding yourself through that. Because honestly speaking, I don't think you'll be as vibrant. I don't think you would feel worthy because people will demean you. People demean even a person in university.
Yep.
People demean a CEO. People demean what they cannot be.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be someone, and that I was talking about it the other day to say this people pleasing at the expense of ourselves. Sometimes we sit
Mm.
for things that are not good.
Yeah.
Sometimes we
Yes.
conform to things we shouldn't conform to because we don't want to be singled out. And I love it. You know, by virtue of God being God, God said, Luthando, I will single you out. Because there's a purpose that he had said that you need to be separated from what the common norms are. And I love that. I want you to just, you on your bio, you also spoke about Yali. I
Yeah.
saw some good, nice things around there. And
Mhm.
how has your experience been? And hey, it's so sad. Tell me about this 20, but in 18 to 35. This 18 to
Yeah.
35 is growing. Are we now the generation that is over 35 that are not, you know, who created 18 to 35 guys? I don't know if you, the community guys on the line. Aibo, 18 to 35. I think this is where we are about to get juicy. Post 35, that's where the juices are in. So I don't know how your experience was. So for the guys that don't know, it's the
Yeah.
Young African Leaders Initiative. And I just want you to just give us exactly what you do there and what impact work that you have put in, especially on the leadership as well as preparing this 18 to 35
Yes.
figure for the future.
Yes, okay, fine. Well, with the Young African Leadership, what I love about it is the collaboration. You've got access to collaborators, especially on the African continent. You've got access to other people, and it's not only persons living with disabilities, it's everyone. It's everyone. Different point of views, different experiences. So whatever challenge that you're going through that you might just think that is too big, there's someone who has gone through it before, and or they're probably thinking around the same thing. And what I like about it is with the Young African Leadership Initiative, because it's a partnership with the United States and Africa and other um, continents. What happens is that they take um, students from
Yes.
around the continent, and they have the opportunity. Some of them, not everybody, has the opportunity to go to the US and everything, and then study further. And also have friends that actually have then gone on to study their PhDs from this initiative.
Mm-mm.
What I like most about this is that disability or intrusion is not something that is not that's even discussed, if you get what I mean. It
Ah,
is something that is a must. Like, we can't be talking that laptops
maybe,
should
you
be
know.
voice activated, this should be like this. No, they are. The question that we should be talking about while we are during the discussion is, how do we then make sure that the African girl child has access to what I have access to? How do I make sure that the kids that are coming behind me, what
Yes.
programs am I doing? What programs am I running to ensure, or which at the table that I'm sitting at, what contribution am I giving? Then you report back to the group, say, guys, this is what I'm doing. This are the programs that I've made. And the young ones that are coming through, my responsibility as a person with a disability, as a woman with a disability, is to make sure that I educate the young ones to say, guys, this is what the future looks like. And I try to give them representation. So whatever I do, whenever I'm on the public space, any public domain, I'm very careful about the message that I'm sending out. I'm very careful about what I look like. And I think for a lot of people, that might just be something that is like we take for granted. But with me, because of the experiences that I had, I know that I need to look in a certain way so that I send a certain silent message to a girl somewhere to say that you see that beautiful, happening, sexy, what, hot mama somewhere there. I want to be like that. Oh my gosh, she's not a slave queen or educated. I want to be like that. Oh my gosh. I want to be like that. I want to tick all the boxes as much as I can for the young ones that are happening behind, that are coming. And my life may not be perfect, and it's not actually, but what I'm trying to do is to actually give reference to someone to say, you know what, she can do it, I can do it. And it does not necessarily have to be a person with a disability or a kid with a disability. It can actually just be any child to say that, you know, that lady, she inspires me. So as much as I want to inspire kids with disabilities and their parents, to say that the world can be a good place to live in. I also am quite aware of the silent message that I am sending out in changing the narrative of person with a disability, especially where how they look and how they sound.
I like that. You know, more than anything, with what you've shared, what's resonating with me is the part of impact, right? That you show up and to make sure that the table, you know, there's this party and tafula that we are so fighting for. I don't get. You know, we find out. Remember when we were growing up, it was a four-seater, right? The tables are now. Remember that the tables are the seat that you want.
Yes.
But the funny part is we are holding on to opportunity. We don't even want to share. And I'm more intrigued about the Yali proposition and what they stand for, as you mentioned. It's for people that want to see the future that they did not have or
Yes.
experience.
Yeah.
And as much as there's only a handful of us that are saying we are advocating for something and we're standing for it, we're not going to back down. How beautiful it is in your lineage to have someone that is fighting hard to change the narrative that is now. Your kids, you know, I've started looking at life differently. Our role models, I think our role models were the TV actresses, if I'm not mistaken. Tabiso, you know, Tabiso Yozandin Tapo, because they were there and they have it well put. But if you look at our kids now, for us to mold and to shape their role modeling world, we need to be that. They say kids don't learn from what you tell them, they learn from what they see.
Yeah.
I love when you mentioned you have to look a certain way. And that put
Yeah.
me a bit in an uncomfortable to say, "Iple eyelash hasn't got any faggy." You know, because I also want those that follow or that come behind me that said, I did not sleep on myself. I can still be
Yeah.
the same girl who comes from Soweto, who had hardships, but is where she is now. And it's those things that we need to start making. I think I was speaking to Kelani Nozinke the other time, early in the year, and we were speaking particularly to say, let's make education fashionable. There is nothing, you know, influencing is about everything else of free stuff, of things that are
Yes.
coming, or free
Yes.
BDs,
Yes.
or influencing you to buy. But how about we make education, you know, sexy? We make people
Exactly.
feel like, you know what,
Exactly.
come
Exactly.
into a room
True.
where the skills and the competencies and the qualifications that we all have become one thing. And we were talking about it with Kelani, that we want to sit in spaces where we as people now have a good network of everyone.
Yes.
And that's where we fail to do it. You have your friends, you have your people, you have your acquaintances, but we fail at saying, You know, I've got a friend of mine who's a psychologist. We don't say that. I've got a friend of mine who actually sells diffusers. We don't
Mm.
say that. We'd
We don't
rather
say
find
that.
ourselves. Keep
Yes.
Black Friday. Black Friday is coming up. We are already queuing for the stores, the sales. But
We're sharing the specials, but we don't share the things that really matter in life that are going to change our lives. Yeah.
you know, we don't share the skills. We are so accustomed to not sharing knowledge, and it's so seen in the successions. You know, we are seeing that it is so difficult to measure success because success is ching ching. But one thing that I can tell you, success is inside. You know,
Yes.
before anything, your heart feels the success before the money lands. Because society has made it look like you have to have it well put. Kanti the mas sleepy sleepy actually good. Because this sleepy sleepy eye a story. I mean, you're seeing a lot of people now writing a book. I'm sure
Yes.
it's been in your mind somewhere there. I,
It's been a long time coming, yes.
You see, so it's one of those things that you sit and you want to now put it to paper to say, Black girl, you've got it. This
Mm.
was that. My life changed here. And this is where I am. And then also, I think the guys on the line don't know that you do public speaking and TV hosting. What a better combination of advocacy. You know,
Yeah.
we always say, you know, if I had the platform, I would share it. And look at us now. God gives us this small
Right?
platform so that we can share these insights
Yeah.
and take us through that journey on public speaking and how these opportunities, maybe you had to fight your way to get
Mhm.
in them where people think, when I say in the tick box, like you mentioned, maybe
Yes.
by virtue of I stood my ground. That is
Yeah.
why I'm here. So please, if you can share it to the guys on the line, say, listen, this works for me. This is how I'm making it. This is how I'm living, and this is the message that I'm sending to everybody out there.
Yeah. Oh, well, yes, I've said before that I'm actually communicating comes very natural to me, just talking, whether it's writing, um, talking in general, but any other way, just communicating comes naturally to me. So the reason that I actually then also do television presenting and public speaking is because, as I said before, it's representation. There was no one that looked the way that I wanted to look on television, or the one person with a disability that sounded the right way. The story, the narrative that's always been punted. It was the narrative of poverty, hardship, and kubuhlungu nje, you know, you look and then tears go down. And I was like, that's not my story. Um, yes, there's certain things that happen in my life, but that's not my story. And that's not the story that I want to be seen as I'm walking down the street or I'm in a mall and having a good time. And I don't want to be an enigma when I am in a restaurant and I'm having a drink and people are looking at me like, what space did you fall out of? Why are you having a glass of wine? Why are you looking that fabulous? I did not want that. And I know that the biggest medium is television, that you can change people's narrative the quickest way. So that is why then I would like, well, that's how I actually fell in love with television and radio, actually. And for me, it was like, I'm not going to be there and always be talking about disability and everything. No, we're going to talk about everything and anything else.
Things.
And of all my friends, I mean, some of them are here on the chat, Numbu, Khatu, and I think I saw my sister too. When you're sitting with me, the last thing we're going to talk about is disability. We hardly talk about that. When we go out and we have fun, we're not going out and then disability is it doesn't exist because we are inclusive. We are we are moving on. Like we are there. We are talking about life problems. We are talking about finances. We are talking about Jolo that is giving us
Mm.
big time problems. We are talking about these kids that don't listen, and
That-
sometimes they listen. But the best thing since sliced bread. And we are talking about home issues like, girl, but your mom, like, you know, those are the things that we are talking about, right? So we're talking about human issues
mm.
90% of the time. And the only time that we got to realize, and usually it becomes our disability because now I'm there. that we have a problem is when we are out and there are stairs and we go like, now how are we gonna go in? Or we
Yes.
go out and now the bathroom is like, and then we like, now we have a problem. But before that, then it does not exist. So for me, actually, this is how I see it. If ever we were to address the cosmetic things, the little things, uh, a lot of inabilities,
Mhm.
I'm trying to choose my words very wisely here, would cease to exist. All right?
Mm.
If we were to get the transport system right, if we were to get the environment inclusive, a lot of issues will not exist. A lot of issues are there because people are disabled by their environment 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So, um, so the reason that I actually fell in love with television is because I wanted to change the narrative, and the reason that I actually also have a podcast as well, and would take any opportunity to be on the stage to speak, is because deep down, I have an agenda and I need to address it, which is to change the narrative. Disability rights are human rights. So when we're talking every single right, disability needs to be there as well. Because when we are talking anything in general, we need to be looking at people as human beings and
More than
meeting each
being.
other on a human level, not at what you look like level or what you think like level. It's just me. Yeah.
Wow. You know, I think this interview kind of gave us a glimpse of your world, and not because there's a difference, but it kind of demystified a lot of things. And I hope everybody on the line kind of is now at ease. You know, they're now at ease because I can imagine trying to look at this whole world in this way, say, when are we going to change, or when are these things going to start happening? But I'm glad that you've just integrated our worlds. I think both of us have kind of like integrated our worlds, and it makes me so humbled because we now are understanding one thing: human before everything.
Yes.
It's as good as when you are abantu bakutreat differently because you hold a certain rank, which is another topic for
Mhm.
another day.
Yeah.
I hate to be treated with respect because I've got a position. I
Right?
always say to people, do not respect me because of a certain position. Respect me because it's my human right to be
Yes.
respected, and it ends
Yeah.
there. And I
Yeah.
hope the guys on the line are seeing that transition that we need to start transitioning to it as a people. The way you look at yourself, look at the next person. And I think it will be easy. I think it will remove a lot of stuff where in a conducive work environment, toxicity, what you do to the next person, if it's done to you, would you like that? And honestly
Yeah.
speaking, we won't have this bullying, we won't have this narcissistic behaviors, autocratic behavior. We'll have people that say, yo, if this was coming to me, I wouldn't handle it. And
Right?
therefore I can't give
Yes.
it. So I
Yes.
think our time is running, eh? So I don't know if there's any parting words. And earlier on, you spoke about invisible disabilities. Next week, our next week live, we're going to be sharing exactly that.
Mm.
We've got our speaker who's also my co-founder, Elani. Will be having a live conversation around it because she has ADHD and has been diagnosed. So the fact that we are in this journey together to say, you
Yes.
said sometimes it's physical, you can see it, but sometimes it's actually mental. And
Right?
the sooner we start living the best. You said you go to a club, you go to a party, you have wine. Let us not see someone on a wheelchair having wine and start judging. Kanako ewe, now you are
Yes.
having your savannah on your head, but you are judging someone who's having their drink. So let's all
Yeah.
live the best that we can. So I want to hear your parting words before we close our live.
Yeah. My parting words is that we're all human beings, and let's just meet each other at a human level. At the bare minimum is just respect each other, respect each other's space. If you don't know, ask. If you really, really, really are wanting to help because in your mind you're thinking someone is having a hard time, ask before you do. Do not impose. do not impose, because sometimes you might never know. Maybe that person's going through rehabilitation and they need that exercise and they want to take that away from them. So whatever you do, always, it's okay to be vulnerable. We are all human and we all make mistakes. But the beautiful thing is intention. Good intentions will get you somewhere. Peace out. That's me.
Thank you so much. I mean, in a world where social media makes it difficult for us to be vulnerable, let's push ourselves first.
Yeah.
The boundaries are created by us because we think the mess is not appreciated.
True.
We appreciate each and every one with their whole mess because you've got a story to tell. Don't sleep on yourself.
Yeah.
Have a good evening. Tomorrow is Monday, guys. As you get to those workplaces, those 10 styles, remember, you are greater than your Goliath today. Wake up, David. Own up. Have a good evening. Thank you, Lou. We will catch up.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.